And again, thank you, Chairman Wicker, Ranking Member Reed, for holding this hearing. Mr. Secretary, we have a short amount of time, so I'm just going to ask a few simple questions, and I would just appreciate if, for some of them, you would just answer yes or no.
What happens when the very institution meant to uphold justice begins to betray its own? In a shocking Senate hearing, a decorated DOJ attorney, after 15 years of service, is fired for refusing to sign a dishonest legal brief. This isn't just about one man's job. This is a reckoning for an entire department built on truth. As whistleblowers are silenced and vital victim services are cut, the question lingers. Is the Department of Justice still fighting for justice, or has it become an institution protecting its own interests at the expense of the truth?
Senator, we want to uphold the highest possible standards.
I'll take that for a yes. So would you also agree then that anti-Semitism and anti-Semitic conspiracy theories have no place in our government or military? Yes or no?
They should not.
Thank you.
Ruveni's story is not one of a low-level employee seeking attention. Rather, he is a veteran who had been commended for his work during the Trump administration, making his decision to come forward even more remarkable. In his whistleblower complaint, Ruveni outlined that he was pressured to approve a legal document that he felt misrepresented the facts and law, and his refusal to comply with this request ultimately led to his dismissal. His words, simple yet powerful, "I didn't sign up to lie," reflected his deep commitment to integrity and transparency, and it set the stage for a deeply impactful Senate hearing. The hearing itself quickly turned into a public confrontation, with Senator Van Hollen questioning Attorney General Bondi about her department's actions. He asked her directly whether she believed that advocating for a case at any cost, even if it meant bending or distorting the truth, was acceptable. Van Hollen's questions were designed to move beyond the usual political rhetoric and address the core issue. Was the DOJ, under Bondi's leadership, prioritizing loyalty over honesty and accountability? Attorney General Bondi, however, was reluctant to directly engage with the substance of Ruveni's claims. Instead of responding to the specifics of the whistleblower's allegations, she cited ongoing litigation and attorney privilege, which prevented her from offering a detailed response. While legal procedures are important, her answers seemed to deflect attention from the central issue, the potential violation of ethical standards within her department. As the hearing progressed, the focus began to shift not only to the whistleblower's case, but also to the wider implications of the incident. The question arose whether the DOJ was becoming a place where individuals could face retaliation for refusing to compromise their ethical beliefs. The allegations made by Ruveni, which had seemed like an isolated incident at first, now appeared to be part of a broader issue of political influence and disregard for legal integrity. Bondi's defense seemed to be more focused on protecting individuals within the department who had close ties to her. She named senior officials such as Amal Buaway and Todd Blanche, defending their actions and suggesting that Ruveni's complaint was somehow part of an attack on those who were advancing in their careers. To some, this response came across as an attempt to protect loyal members of the DOJ, rather than addressing the issue of a whistleblower being punished for standing up for the truth. The more Bondi attempted to dodge the central issue, the more it seemed as if the hearing was less about upholding justice and more about shielding those in power from accountability. The longer she avoided directly answering Van Hollen's questions, the more it appeared as if she was trying to avoid taking responsibility for what had happened within the department. The core of the controversy was clear. Ruveni's refusal to sign a document he believed was dishonest led to his dismissal. This was not just about one individual's job, but about the broader culture within the DOJ and its commitment to honesty and transparency. When a department built on upholding justice begins to retaliate against those who refuse to compromise their integrity, it raises serious questions about the values that underpin that institution. Gesha Sato Anibadatura. The Argentine network events a year ago broke a personal record. The tension in the room was palpable. This wasn't simply a matter of policy disagreements, it was about whether the DOJ had crossed a line by putting political loyalty ahead of ethical responsibility. Bondi's failure to address the core concerns only added to the growing sense that this scandal was far from over. The hearing was just the beginning of a larger conversation about the DOJ's commitment to truth, accountability, and the protection of whistleblowers who play a critical role in safeguarding the integrity of public institutions. As the Senate hearing continued, the conversation shifted towards another growing issue within the Department of Justice: the sudden and unexplained termination of funding for numerous grants. These were not just any funds, but crucial financial support for a wide range of programs, including those that provided services to crime victims. Some of these grants had been in place for years, supporting vital services like shelters for survivors of abuse, legal aid for those unable to afford it, and law enforcement training. The abrupt cuts raised serious concerns about the DOJ's priorities under Attorney General Pam Bondi's leadership. Senator Chris Van Hollen did not shy away from addressing the far-reaching consequences of these cuts. He highlighted the real-world impact they were having on communities that relied on the federal government's support. Shelters, advocacy groups, and law enforcement agencies were now scrambling to stay afloat as funding was suddenly frozen or slashed. The senator pointed out that these were not trivial cuts or administrative decisions. The reduction in funding was directly affecting the ability of these organizations to provide life-saving services to vulnerable individuals. Bondi's response to these concerns was less than reassuring. While she admitted that the department had made a 6% cut to funding, she seemed to downplay the seriousness of the situation. Her promise to review appeals on a case-by-case basis came across as tone-deaf, given the urgency expressed by lawmakers and the organizations impacted. The suggestion that senators personally petitioned her if they had concerns about specific grants seemed almost dismissive. It failed to address the larger issue of why such critical programs were being jeopardized in the first place. The senator reminded Bondi that multiple lawmakers had already written to her regarding frozen funds from the previous fiscal year. They had received no response. This exchange only added to the growing perception that the DOJ was operating in a manner that lacked transparency and accountability. If lawmakers could not even get clear answers about funding, it raised larger questions about the integrity of the department as a whole. Was the DOJ truly dedicated to serving the public, or was it more concerned with protecting its own interests and the interests of those in power? Bondi's failure to provide meaningful answers regarding the funding cuts added to the belief that the DOJ was more interested in political optics than in actually serving the people who needed help. The department was already under scrutiny for its handling of the whistleblower retaliation case, and now it seemed as if it was also neglecting some of the most vulnerable members of society by slashing essential services. This raised the stakes considerably. The question wasn't just about whether the DOJ was ethical in its treatment of whistleblowers, it was also about whether it was fulfilling its role in protecting the public from harm. The funding cuts and the handling of Ruveni's whistleblower complaint were two sides of the same coin. Both issues illustrated a department that was struggling to uphold its core responsibilities. Whistleblower protections and victim services should not be subjected to political considerations or partisan maneuvering. They should be safeguarded as fundamental elements of justice. Instead, what seemed to be happening under Bondi's leadership was a pattern of prioritizing loyalty over ethical conduct and the interests of the powerful over those who were most in need. As the hearing came to a close, it was clear that the questions raised by Van Hollen would not be easily swept aside. The issues at hand went beyond party lines or political point scoring. They were about the very foundation of the DOJ's integrity. If a department meant to uphold the rule of law began firing employees for refusing to lie and cutting funding for services that protect the most vulnerable, then it was no longer serving the public good, it was serving itself. Van Hollen's insistence on accountability was not just a critique of the DOJ's current actions, but a plea for the department to return to its core mission, upholding justice with transparency, fairness, and integrity. In the aftermath of the hearing, it was clear that these issues would not be easily forgotten. The implications of the decisions made within the DOJ under Bondi's leadership would continue to affect victims, whistleblowers, and the public for a long time to come. If the department could not answer these questions and restore its credibility, then it would be difficult for the public to have confidence in its ability to deliver justice.